Here comes another important tip from the Personal Defense Network. At least once a month, sometimes it seems like twice a week, I'm getting asked about a different product, a different way to carry a gun. What do you think of this holster? What do you think about carrying in this position? Well, of course, every once in a while we do come across something truly new and truly innovative in the world of firearms-related products, specifically inside of the personal defense realm. But far too often I see a lot of products that are in search of a problem to solve. You'll see a lot of bullet points of advantages, perceived advantages that a certain product might offer, but the reality is no one was looking for those advantages, and 99.9% of the people on the planet don't even need those advantages most of the time. For example, a holster that can be used right-handed or left-handed. Well, people are either right-handed or left-handed. They don't need to be both, and they're not going to switch. There's a big difference between a holster carried in a way, for example, a Pincus carry, where you can draw the gun with either hand, and a holster that is reversible. There's really not a lot of call for a reversible holster unless you are just a target shooter who wants something to carry a gun around on the range or maybe out at the sand pit where you're going to shoot, and you want to be able to put the gun on one side and then put the gun on the other side, and I still am not exactly sure why someone might want to do that. So the versatility of a reversible holster, for example, would be a solution in search of a problem. One of the other big things I see is minimalist holsters. Well, the holster that I'm wearing right here, this inside the waistband Kydex holster, I've owned this for well over a decade. And this is about as minimalist as you can get. You can see it barely increases the size of the gun in any way. It's got two very simple straps that are pretty well worn that loop around the belt, very easy to get on and off, but it does a couple of things. One, it's big enough to keep the firearm in a consistent position up against my body. Two, it's got a little flag here which is going to do two things. One, it's going to keep the gun from pressing up against my body, which could expose me to the sharp edges, which makes it less comfortable to carry, which might eventually make me less likely to carry. And two, it keeps the firearm off my body, which is going to keep perspiration off the firearm and make the finish last longer, especially if this were the type of firearm which might be prone to surface rust, something like that, which this one really isn't. We'd want to make sure that it stayed off of our body. So the other thing we've got going on here is that it covers the trigger guard, of course. Now, this is imperative. I don't think anyone should carry a defensive firearm without a round in the chamber. And of course, to have a round in the chamber, we need to make sure that the trigger guard is covered. So this is about as minimalist as it gets. It's a holster that's going to keep the firearm where it needs to be. It's going to keep it anchored. We've got two attachment points to the belt, which means it's not going to flop around. The holster is always going to keep the gun where I want it so I can reach back consistently and present from the holster. Straps, trigger guards covered, and it even is a little bit comfortable. So maybe this isn't even quite as minimalist as it could be, but I think this is a good idea. I think it's a good idea to make sure that your firearm is going to be comfortable when you carry it. Now, what are some of the other options that we've seen out there on the market? Well, there's one device which is designed to allow you to tuck the gun into your belt line and have the trigger guard covered, and of course that comes with a little lanyard. The lanyard attaches to your belt or to a belt loop, and the idea is you don't actually need to have a holster. Well, what are you really saving yourself by not having a holster on the gun? Now if I run, if I move, if I suddenly jump up, or if I suddenly get knocked down, the gun pops out of the holster. Of course, that little trigger guard cover is attached to my belt. The gun falls to the ground. It's now exposed. The trigger is exposed. If someone reaches for it, they could set it off accidentally. If I reflexively grasp for it, I could set it off accidentally. Or anyone who picks it up, of course, now it's just lying out there and it's going to be ready to go. With the trigger guard, the only thing keeping it from being discharged still attached to my belt. I don't know why you would want to carry a gun in a way that didn't cover the gun and actually keep it attached to you. If you take a look at this, again, we're barely increasing the dimensions of the firearm with this type of minimalist holster. So the idea that I'm really going to gain anything by simply having a trigger guard instead of an actual holster, I don't understand. And then there are some things out there that are just reckless, just poorly thought out, bad ideas. One of them is a device that I've seen recently where you put it inside of your waistband and there's a rod, a plastic rod that actually goes into the barrel of your firearm, and then there's a belt clip. So once again, you don't have a holster, you don't have any of the advantages of an actual holster. The trigger guard is exposed, and while the website of this company actually says that this thing that's designed for versatile, so-called versatile carry, is meant to be carried without a round in the chamber, they then also show videos that if you choose to put a round in the chamber and you draw the gun and you fire it, the plastic rod will not damage the gun, won't damage you, it'll simply get blown out of the gun. Well, again, if it has a belt clip and it's supposed to stay on my belt when I draw, and I'm also not supposed to have a round in the chamber, which I think is a bad idea for a defensive carry firearm, then what's the point of showing me that video? Just seems like a really poorly thought out design, really poorly thought out marketing strategy as well. So be careful about minimalist holsters. If you want a holster, if you need a holster, get a holster. Make sure it keeps the gun consistently against your body, allows you to carry comfortably, and will release the gun when you need it, but hold on to the gun when you want it to stay exactly where you're storing it. Be sure to check out the Personal Defense Network for more important tips just like that one.